7 years later, and he still chose his family over me. His parents said they don't want me to come over for the holiday today. Their excuse was that it's the first holiday without their grandma, his dad's mom, and they want it to be just family. After 7 years, why am I still not family? For context, they've never liked me. They've said awful things about me that I hate to even repeat, and they've never made a kind gesture for me in all the time I've known them. I've come to terms with that, and frankly, I don't need their approval. I've done nothing but love and support and encourage my BF for the 8 years I've known him and the 7 years we've been together. But they haven't had to deal with me since 2019. I haven't been to any holidays on their side since the pandemic started. They're anti-vax, so I steered clear for a bit. You'd think they could suck it up for one day after getting a 3-year break from me. You might be thinking, cut them some slack, they're grieving. I already did. When she died 3 months ago, I flew back home the very next day, a whole 10 days after I'd just moved across the country for grad school, because she meant a lot to me, and I wanted to be there to support the love of my life during a difficult time. They chose to go out of town to a relative's house for the weekend, so I only got one night to spend with him. When I asked if I could come up before then, even for a day, and offered to bring food for them and everything, same excuse. We want it to just be us right now. But the wounds were fresh, so I kept my mouth shut and did my best to be there for my BF. I can't keep doing it. When he told me that they don't want me there today, he asked if he could spend some time at both places, so he could see me before I fly back tomorrow. I told him I couldn't do that and that he'd have to pick if he wanted to spend the day with me or them. He couldn't have both. It sounds harsh, I know, but it's been 7 years of pain and frustration and rejection. 7 years of his family talking shit about me and excluding me. 7 years of listening to them degrade and insult him. Stubborn ascending years of trying to get him to see them for who they truly are. And this time, I'm watching my mom in the middle of a divorce with my stepdad for the same reasons. I told him I would not have a relationship like my parents, no matter how much I love him. And he promised that our future wouldn't look like that. But then I made him choose today. I told him that he could come to my family's or stay with his, but he couldn't have his cake and eat it too. And he chose them. I guess I don't really know what I expected. He can't even stand up for himself, or maybe he doesn't even think he needs to. So why would I expect him to stand up for me? I guess I just thought, now that we're older, things would be different. We aren't the same kids we were when we first got together in high school. We've both had to grow up and mature in so many ways, especially after the initial year of the pandemic, and he finally seemed like his own person. He talked and acted like he didn't give a shit about his family's approval anymore. Promised me that he wouldn't risk losing me for them. But when I actually made him choose today, he was too afraid of Daddy to choose me. My ex-husband, 55M, left me, 53F, for our friend, 55F, and no one cares. My ex-husband and I were married for 22 years and have one son, 18. He left me 2 years ago for my friend, who he had been having an affair with for 5 years. To be fair, they went to high school together, so they knew each other longer. We still live in the same town they grew up in, and both of their extended families still live here. They have a huge support system. I grew up about 2 hours away and met my husband in college. I became friends with Tina, 55, through my ex Kent, 55. We have been in the same social circles for over 2 decades. My ex is extremely social, popular, and the life of every party. Everyone knows him and everyone loves him. Tina has always been sweet, kind, and loving. She has always been very loved by everyone. My marriage has always been tough. My ex physically abused myself and my son. He has always been extremely verbally and emotionally abusive as well. I know I should have left him the first time he put his hands on my son, but he convinced me that no one would believe me because everyone loves him. Everyone thinks he's such a great guy. He told me I would never see my son again, and I believed him. I did everything in my power to shield my son and take all the hits. Most of the time I was successful, but not always. About 4 years ago, Tina's husband was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He died about 9 months later. Tina's 3 kids, 26 mem, 24 and 21 f, devastated. The whole community was devastated because everyone just loves Tina because she is just the nicest person and didn't deserve to lose her soulmate. I, on the other hand, have been struggling. I never confided in anyone about the abuse going on. I was embarrassed and ashamed. I wasn't protecting my only child. I was at SATM, and my ex owned his own successful construction company. On the outside, we were perfect. I went back to school to become a teacher so I could support myself when I eventually could leave. My son started getting in trouble at school. Smoking pot, drinking, in general angry all the time. I felt the same, but thought I had time to get us out and away from him. I was wrong. 3 years ago, Tina was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer. Everyone was in shock. No one could believe so soon after her husband that she too would be dealing with cancer. The community rallied around her and the kids. Facebook posts nonstop about being their strength in the weeks following the news. That's when Kent came home, packed his bags, and with the cruelest tone yet, told me that Tina and him had been together for the last 5 years. They were in love, and he was going to spend every last second he could with her because life was too short. He never loved me and was only with me because she married someone else. I was simultaneously relieved and devastated. Tina was my friend. She was sleeping with my husband while hers was dying. It became public knowledge pretty quickly that they were a couple now, and come to find out, several of our friends had known all along. There were lots of guys skiing trips that included Tina and guys' nights out that included Tina. The other wives, the ones that I thought were also my friends, turns out they considered Tina's friendship more important because she is the beloved golden child of the community along with my ex. They could do no wrong, and everyone just loves them. And it turns out I'm the villain of this story. Apparently, I'm the bad guy because I stood in the way of their true love. Not a single person has called them out for what they did to me or Tina's husband. They have faced zero consequences. Actually, the complete opposite. Our entire small community is celebrating them because they are just the best. Kent moved directly into Tina's house, the one she shared with her husband, along with my son. Turns out Kent was cool with them smoking pot together because he's the cool dad. He let him skip school, get high, and stay out as late as he wanted. I was such a drag because I didn't want my son to be on drugs and to go to school and get an education. My son stopped coming home, stopped taking my calls, responding to texts, and told me that I deserved what happened to me. Then he blocked me everywhere. From what I understand, since graduating, he now works part-time at a chicken wing place. My so-called friends completely ghosted me too. Kent calls and texts on a regular basis to tell me what a piece of shit I am. I don't know why I haven't blocked him. I guess just in case something happens to my son. I'm starting to believe that I am the problem. I think it must be me. Something must be wrong with me for everyone in my life to do this to me. I should move. I don't have anything left here. I'm embarrassed to even go to the grocery store. I've seen people that used to be my friends out, and they just look at me funny and never say a word. I don't want any advice. I just don't have anyone left and really just wanted to scream into the internet void because no one IRL cares. My dad died when I was 24. My mom lives in Denver. My father lives in DC. I see them for holidays, and they check in on me to make sure I'm still alive. I thought once Kent and I were divorced, my life would start over and would be amazing. It was supposed to be my second chance at life. It's just the opposite. It's so much worse. How can that be? Why don't I deserve happiness? Before you come for me, yes, I'm in therapy. Yes, I'm exercising every single day and am in the best shape of my life. Yes, I'm finding new hobbies. But I just can't get over the complete betrayal of my good friend and all the other people I thought were friends. Not a single person in the shitty community has been kind to me since this all came out. Not one. My whole adult life has been a lie, and I'm struggling. I ignored my husband so much that he went away without telling me. I, Carla, am 6 months pregnant with mine and my husband's hairy first child. During this pregnancy, I've been very exhausted every day and would usually come home from work and go to bed an hour later. Then I'd wake up at midnight and reheat what Harry had made us for dinner. For context, I've been part of a huge work project that's been going on for months, and I've been extremely overworked. On top of this, my husband doesn't have a job at this moment and isn't looking for one unless I remind him. I've been working overtime to get as much money as I can before maternity leave. Our anniversary was on the 6th of August, and I'd asked him if we could have a romantic dinner at home and then snuggle up to watch TV under a warm blanket. I thought it was a wonderful idea since I was too tired to go out, and because I knew that Harry was doing most, if not all, of the household chores. However, he seemed a little annoyed when he agreed, but I thought nothing of it. The next morning, Harry seemed quite cold towards me and barely looked me in the eyes. Once I got home from work, he wasn't there. But that was normal, since he could have been out with friends or at an interview. And so I went to sleep. I woke up at 11 that night to see that I was still alone in the house, so I checked my phone. I had about 8 missed calls from Harry and a long text. I'm summarizing, but the text read, "I understand how tired you are because of this pregnancy and you having to work extra hours most days, but I'm over being ignored every day and having a 5-minute conversation with you every so often. You expect me to do all the housework and plan our boring anniversary alone. I'm really annoyed, so I'm staying at a friend's tonight. Text me when you see this." Of course, I called him and texted him about being sorry and wanting to talk, but I never got an answer. In the morning, I called my boss about having a day off and spent most of it waiting for Harry and planning my apology. However, when he came home, he silently handed me a rose and a card saying that he loves me, but needs a few days away from me to figure out what he's going to say do. Then, those days became a week. This part happened on the 13th, 8 days later. I messaged him every day, and he would constantly say that he needed one more day, or just another night at his friend's, to figure this all out. But on the 13th, I decided to go to the friend's home he was staying at to confront him, so I drove over, nearly 30 minutes away, and banged on the door so hard that I could hear it echo from inside. By this point, I'd realized that I should have put more effort into our relationship. But he also should have talked to me about this instead of running away. Harry's friend came to the door and was confused but pleased to see me. He seemed a little on edge as I talked to him, and he had to break the silence every so often with comments about my pregnancy and how he couldn't wait to meet the baby. Finally, we stopped talking, and I practically demanded to see Harry, saying that I wanted to apologize, but also explain how childish he was being by hiding from me. The thing that I found absolutely hilarious, but actually not at all, was that his friend said that Harry wasn't there and had left for Ireland on the 9th. Ireland. To say I was absolutely beyond furious and extremely confused would be such an understatement. His friend invited me in and sat me down to talk. Turns out that Harry had told his friend of our problems and had come up with the solution of going on a holiday as a couple to sort everything out and learn to love each other again, in Harry's words. So, of course, his friend thought that was a lovely idea and helped him to book the flight on the evening of the 5th, the first time he had stayed at his friend's house. Since it was a last-minute booking, Harry's friend had stayed up with him for quite a while before they found a flight who was taking a few more passengers due to canceled tickets. His friend then explained how he'd been confused when I arrived at the door, but didn't want to say anything about the holiday in case it had ended early due to us arguing. Harry's return ticket is booked for the 20th of August. I am just so angry and quite heartbroken, to be completely honest. I messaged him the moment his friend had finished talking, and Harry only responded an hour ago with nothing more than a, "Had to figure things out. Sorry." So now I'm home alone, again, and trying to figure out what I'm going to do or say when he gets home. Anyway, thanks for reading about how my life is going. Side note, I'm from the UK, so Ireland isn't as far as people think it is since I'm not American. But it is still so far. Other side note, a question that keep repeating is, where did he get the money from without you noticing? So I'll leave my explanation from the comments here. He has a bank account with his money from when he worked as a teenager and a little into his 20s before we met. And a few years ago, we agreed not to touch that money and add to it every so often. It was a backup savings account. So I'm assuming that he took the money from there since it wasn't from the joint account. Ex-husband backed out on his agreement. Ended up costing him so much more in the long run. My ex-husband and I had a great divorce. Even though he cheated on me after 12 years and 2 kids under 4, I really wanted to do things differently than my parents did during their divorce. I never said anything negative about him and tried very hard to defend him when the kids got upset with him. I extended invitations to the woman he left me for so she would not feel uncomfortable with me, and we became friends. She was basically their stepmom, so why not include her on everything? On holidays, we all had one big dinner, he and her and me and my BF. This made everyone comfortable, and the kids never had to choose one side or the other as we were all on the same page. It was such a great relationship that when I had back surgery, I recovered at his house, and she cooked for me. He and I were coaches for the kids' basketball and baseball teams, and I helped at their wedding 13 years later. This was not easy for me, as he moved to another state to raise her children, leaving me to raise ours on my own. She quit her job when they got together, and I had to return to work to support my kids, but I needed to keep the resentment and bitterness away from my kids. All of this sets the tone for the divorce, but when he initially left, I spoke to a lawyer and got a separation agreement that was really great for me. He asked that I not take half of his retirement, but instead he would pay X in child support and additional Y in alimony, because he was making a lot of money and I was a stay-at-home mom with a country club membership. Yuck! I hated saying that, but it was only to set the scene. Normally, alimony ends after 5 years, but because I didn't get half of the 401k, the only condition on ending it was it would end on my remarriage or my death. He agreed with all of it. The thing is, when he left me to move down to where she lived, he left his cushy job and took this promising, but not delivering position that really screwed him financially. But he never went back to the lawyer to get the child support or alimony reduced. Instead, he borrowed from his mother. When I discovered he was mooching off of her, I suggested to her that she stop paying for him when he finally got back on his feet. She never would do that and continued paying for his life and her to be a stay-at-home mom, even co-signing for a second home for him when he finally moved back to raise his kids. Hers had graduated and lived in his old house. Ours were in HS. He did come to me and ask if I would accept regular child support and half of the alimony. Then later, when he was really earning money, he would pick back up on the past due amount. Not wanting to make waves in an otherwise great divorce, I said yes and kept track each month of what was owed in a shared spreadsheet with him, so he could see how far in debt he was getting each month. He ended up owing me $1,000,000 a month 10 years, but he said when the kids aged out of child support, he would continue to pay the same amount to make up for the alimony, which totaled $120,000. When my daughter aged out, he continued to pay the same amount, putting a small dent in what he owed for 3 years. Then, as soon as my son aged out, 2 weeks after he joined the Marines, he called me and told me there was no way he was going to continue paying me for the next X years, and I could take him to court if I wanted, but there is no fucking way he would pay me another cent. This completely blew my mind as we had such a fantastic relationship, and it came out of nowhere. I was completely freaked out, but I took his advice, I contacted an attorney, I sent all his calls to voicemail, per my attorney's advice, and I took him to court. The best thing was, prior to the hearing, my attorney put a lien on both homes he had so he could not change ownership to his mom or wife prior to the court hearing. I still have the phone call recording when he realized this, and the horrible names he called me for doing that. Since I had kept such immaculate records from that day, he changed payments, and he was aware of his debt rising each month. It was a slam dunk for my attorney. Instead of making small payments for a few years, he had 30 days to pay me $120,000 in full. Unfortunately, the kids now have to choose which parent they visit on holidays. But that was not my fault. I was willing to continue as is and not put any strain on the family relationship. And for those who are wondering, yes, he did cheat on her 2x before they got married, but she had quit her job when they got together because she found a sugar daddy and had nothing to fall back on, nowhere to go, so she stayed with him. Since we were friends, she shared this info with me as I would understand what she was going through. I am done, and I'm heartbroken. I have no one. I have been married for 15 years. I have known my wife since I was 8. We have 3 daughters together, 17, 14, and 11. I'm tired of feeling like I'm an outsider in my relationships with all of them. I'm just an ATM and taxi service to my kids. My wife hasn't kissed me in 6 months. She has not said that she loves me in 1.5 years. No matter how much I communicate, try to plan anything or do anything, it is always shot down, forgotten, or dismissed. I don't get angry and don't yell. I don't get physical. I like to splurge during birthdays and Mother's Day. I throw parties and give gifts and try to show how much I love them. I get a lukewarm thanks. And if I'm lucky, a side hug that lasts 0.1 seconds. This week was the breaking point. Father's Day. I wake up to an empty house. Odd. No note. Nothing was written on the calendar, and nothing said beforehand. I send a text and I get back. I took the girls out for a spa day. Don't wait up. Then nothing, literally nothing. Dinner time comes around and they get home. How their say was, it was fine. I ask what they would like for dinner. Nothing, we already ate at one of my favorite restaurants. Cool, whatever. There is no mention of it being Father's Day. No, I love you, how are you? Nothing. Fast forward to Wednesday, which was my birthday. Nothing. Literally again, nothing. I suggested plans. They get shot down. I suggested food. Nope, shot down. Ask about watching a movie, they are all too busy. They just sat on their phones doing nothing. Now to Thursday night. I'm in bed. My wife is next to me. She rolls over and says in a crappy tone, "Oh, your birthday was the other day. I guess you expect to have sex." That broke something in me, best of my memory of how it went down. I said, "No, I don't expect sex. At this point, I don't expect anything anymore." Her, "What is that supposed to mean?" So I started asking her questions. When was the last time we shared a kiss? Like a week? Nope. It was in December, and it was during her parents' holiday party. When was the last time we had sex? The beginning of the year? Nope. Wrong, it has been over a year. She was adamant that we did it in February. I was dealing with my mom's health and her passing, so I said something like, "You may have had sex, but it wasn't with me." When was the last time you said you love me? I say it all the time. Not to me. Check your messages, / you don't say it to me face to face. Well, you should just know I do. When was the last time we went on a date? Long pause. Her. You're being unfair. Emotions turned on fully. I was crying and raising my voice at this point. It asks her how. She can't answer. I asked her how wanting any sign of love from anyone in the house is unfair. If expecting anything for my birthday or Father's Day was unfair. Yeah, you forgot that as well. I'm not an ATM, I'm not a taxi service, I'm not a punching bag. She asked why this was coming up out of the blue. It didn't. I have tried to talk to my family and again get dismissed or ignored. I brought up examples. I got an, "I didn't know you were serious. I didn't know it was such a big deal." I left saying something to the point of, "If you want to pretend that I'm invisible and don't exist, fine. You don't have to pretend anymore." I left the house at almost midnight. On Thursday, Friday morning. Haven't been home since. I'm not sure what to do now. I'm finally sober enough to think, but I don't know what to do. First time drinking in over 15 years BTW, and I'm not going to drink anymore. I love my family, but I can't keep this up. I don't know what more I can do. I think they would be happier without me. They already act like I don't exist. I can't be the one who is blamed for everything. If I truly am the problem, then me not being there should fix it. I can't do it anymore. I have tried to be a good provider, a good partner, and a good dad. Never missed an event of our kids. Never prioritized work. I kept good hours so I could see them more. Took on more responsibility to better our life and future. But it is never appreciated. It is never enough. I am never enough. I only have one message from my wife. I'm sorry for making you feel that way. We all love you, and we are here for you when you want to come home and talk. That is it. No other messages, no calls, nothing from the kids. I feel like if they really wanted me there, they would try reaching out more. All of the kids have their own phone. I don't know what she told them. I'm sure they heard me raise my voice. Me raising my voice would have definitely got their attention, since I never do. I'm sure they heard me leave. I just don't know.